Good morning, everyone. We just want to thank everyone for joining us today for this press conference for paid family leave for lost families. We have a lineup of speakers for you today. My name is Marjorie Vale. I am a co-director of Awareness for Push for Empowered Pregnancy. I will be moderating today's conference. I am excited for this time, this moment that we get to, as lost families, share our thoughts and our passion about what families need after a loss. To begin, I just want to let you know what is PUSH. Push for Empowered Pregnancy. We're a diverse coalition of bereaved parents from around the United States. And we're working closely with medical researchers, doctors, hardworking allies and families to drive down the incidence of stillbirth in the United States for the next decade. And we're going to do it by any means necessary. So that is PUSH. Today, we're here for our lost families and the need for time off after a loss. Just to share a little bit about myself, I'm a mother of two, one angel baby, one who is still with us. About 18 years ago, yes, you heard me right, 18 years ago, went into the hospital. I had a midwife, delivered at a very well-known hospital. And I was so excited. I was actually going into the hospital and I saw a woman coming out with her car seat. And I said to myself, that's going to be me in a few hours. I was so excited. I was not prepared for what happened that day. I think people, we don't like to talk about death, but of course, and even more so, the death of a child is even worse. We stay away from it at all costs. So I say that to say that no one warned me and no one told me or talked to me about stillbirth at all. So I had no clue that it was even a possibility. After laboring for a few hours, in about like two hours from the time that I went to deliver, I was in the birthing center. My normal pregnancy, my normal labor became an emergency, and so I felt like I was like in a movie. It makes me think about Kevin Bacon. I forget the name of that movie where it's like, oh, she's having a baby. So it just instantly became a horror movie. And so I was put under anesthesia quickly. I mean, the doctor started cutting me before I was even under. That's how fast they were trying to get to the baby. But unfortunately, when I came to, the first thing the doctor told me was that he didn't make it. And so one can only imagine, this is my first child, the heartbreak and the horror that I felt, especially for me at the time. I had a few other friends who were pregnant at the same time. And here I was having to tell others that my baby didn't make it. For me, it was unheard of. For others, it was unheard of. I've never had any experience like that in my whole entire family. No one has ever lost a child that anyone spoke about, at least. And so I began on a trajectory of trying to figure out what happened, a trajectory of trying to heal, a trajectory of fighting to make sure that other families do not go through what I went through. And so I wish that I could say my story ended after finding out that he had passed. There's so much more that happens after you lose a baby that we tend to neglect or we tend to overlook, especially if we haven't gone through it, because it's difficult to deal with. But we have to, and we must look at the aftermath of a stillbirth and how it impacts families, because it impacts families forever. Like I said, it's been 18 years, and here I am still connecting and with families who've lost a baby last week, yesterday. It happens every single day. And so we are here today to demand for time for families after a loss to be able to psychologically and emotionally get themselves together. It's never enough time, but we need the time. It's never enough time, but we need the time. And so we welcome the lost families, we welcome the dignitaries, we welcome everyone who is here to help us raise our voices for lost families to have this time to be able to get themselves, reconnect themselves, recalibrate themselves. And so I'm going to move next to our next speaker. We have a speaker lineup for you today. We're going to go to Cassidy Perrone, who will be our first official speaker for today. Cassidy, before you begin, I just want to read your quote. I know that many people haven't seen it. Cassidy wrote, "It is essential that Governor Hochul and lawmakers assist in changing the current law that not only discriminates, but endangers the lives of women already facing enormous tragedy by forcing us to choose between paying our bills or following the medical advice of our doctors postpartum." Before you begin, Cassidy, I just want to remind everyone to please stick to the 5 minutes. We're passionate about our losses, but we also have, we want to be succinct and we want to be poignant, and we really want to make sure that we are heard today. So Cassidy, I pass it on to you.
Thank you, Marjorie. My name is Cassidy Perrone, and I am the mother of Olivia Grace Perrone, who was born still on March 17th, 2022, at 36 weeks gestation. I am also a victim of the unfair and discriminatory Paid Family Leave Act of New York State. To save time, I can't really get into my Stillbirth story, but what I will tell you is that at my normal 36-week OB appointment, my husband and I learned that Olivia no longer had a heartbeat. I was then immediately rushed to the hospital, where I was induced and underwent 16 hours of labor before delivering my daughter vaginally. My husband and I walked out of the hospital empty-handed, and a week later, we had a very small funeral with just immediate family. The very next day, I received a call from my current employer stating that New York had reached out to let me know that my previously approved paid family leave application was being revoked because the baby had died. And they asked if I would be so kind to voluntarily withdraw my application for them. To which I replied, absolutely not. If they were going to deny me that leave that I deserved to heal my body and my mind, they would have to do so without my consent. I spoke with the state personally, and they attempted to comfort me. And the comfort that they attempted to give was, don't worry, you no longer qualify for the almost $1,100 a week in paid family leave, but we are going to give you a whopping $170 a week in temporary disability before taxes. Now ask yourselves, in this economy, what family can live off of $170 a week? And in 2022, like many other households, women are the primary breadwinners. And in my household, that happens to be the case. My husband is a civil servant, and I do make significantly more. So our mortgage, our student loan payments, our vehicle payments to get to and from work are based upon my salary. So think about the mothers, who are single mothers that don't have a second income to help them out, or the families that maybe don't have savings accounts to rely upon. I brought this up with my doctor because I was terrified. I didn't know how we were going to pay the bills. At my 2-week postpartum appointment, she told me that she could not medically clear me to go back to work, whether Olivia had lived or died, for a minimum of 6 to 12 weeks because of the postpartum complications and effects that every woman go through. Your body doesn't realize you don't have a baby to care for. So you're still enduring not only the pain from labor and afterbirth, but all of the postpartum effects that you would get if your child lived. Additionally, women in the postpartum period, because it is a serious medical condition, are subject to complications like infection, pulmonary embolisms, blood clots, the list goes on. So if I went back to work before the 6 to 12 weeks, it would have to be against her medical advice. Now, my husband and I chose my life over our pocketbooks, and it was scary. And we had to basically deplete our savings account and live off of credit cards. We are fortunate, but think about the families that don't have a savings account, the single moms, the families that don't have two incomes. These women are being forced to choose between going back to work to pay their bills or follow the medical advice of their doctors. And this is unacceptable, New York, absolutely unacceptable. It is now my mission to make sure that the stillbirth mothers and families after me do not have to endure this type of treatment in their darkest hour. Now, not only does this force us to choose between our pocketbooks or our life, but it discriminates, because when you have a child in New York, you have two options under paid family leave that you qualify. The first is to bond with a child. The second is to take leave to care for the the serious medical condition of another. So theoretically, a father or a husband of a stillborn child can take medical leave to care for the serious medical condition of the mother, because postpartum has been deemed a serious medical condition. But the mother doesn't have the ability under the current law to take the time to heal herself and to make sure she doesn't have a complication that leads to mortality. It is unfair, it is despicable, and the state of New York, I am calling upon all lawmakers, including the governor, to make this a priority and immediately fix this unjust gap in the law at the beginning of the 2023 session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cassidy, for sharing your story. It's not easy, and the importance of why this paid leave is important for lost families. I do have two questions for you, just to help us to just expand and to amplify why this is important. And my first question to you, I know that sometimes lawmakers try to kind of figure out a way to appease and appeal everyone, right? So for you, why do you think it's important that stillbirth not be lumped in with miscarriages and abortion in this paid leave act bill?
That's a great question, Marjorie. Basically, what I've done through my research is since the inception of paid family leave in 2018, I have noticed that each year a lawmaker proposes a bill that includes expanding paid family leave for abortions, miscarriage, and stillbirth. But it never passes. It dies in committee. So you have to ask yourself, why in a Democrat-run state is this happening? Over the past 9 months since Olivia's passing, I've spoken to Democrats and Republicans in both houses, and it's the same story and answer from both aspects, that miscarriage is much more prevalent and abortion than stillbirth. There are about 1,500 stillbirths a year in New York State. That's 5 a day in New York, versus 1 in every 4 pregnancies resulting in miscarriage, and abortion is very common in 2022. So given the expense of this bill, it has not yet passed. Fiscally conservative Democrats are not willing to sign on, and Republicans do not support it because of abortion. So let's do the non-political thing here, because the current bill that keeps being proposed is not only trying to fix the gap in the law by adding stillbirth, it's expanding it to additional areas of pregnancy loss. Now, I'm not opposed to that, but we cannot lump stillbirth in. Let's fix the area of the law that has the gap and expand it once we do that. Because by keeping them in the same bill, stillbirth parents are getting the short end of the stick when it doesn't pass. And that's my position.
Thank you so much for your clarity on that, Cassidy. My second question for you is, of course, lawmakers are always trying to figure out a way to kind of shortcut or to lump people together. And there was something else that was proposed. Why is it that you think it's important that stillbirth not be part of temporary disability under the paid family leave?
So that's a great question, Marjorie. The way that paid family leave and temporary disability work is you can take them in conjunction with one another. So you can take your 12 weeks of paid family leave, and then after that, you can take 26 weeks of temporary disability. So that gives you a total of 9 months off if you have a living child. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're a father of a stillborn child, you could get 12 weeks of paid family leave to care for the serious medical condition of another, and 6 months of leave for temporary disability, giving you a total of 9 months. If we just up the amount of money for paid for short-term disability, which lawmakers are proposing, to have the 170 meet the 1100 of the paid family leave, it's still not equitable because stillbirth mothers would only be getting 6 months of leave versus the 9 that the other parents are getting. It does not fix the inequity. And quite frankly, lawmakers have made it clear to me, very honestly, that they're seeking not only to increase temporary disability for stillbirths, but for every single qualifying medical condition across the board. Now, that would be incredibly expensive. We're not opposed to that. The problem is that it is going to take what they have told me, a minimum of 18 months to 2 years to accomplish that goal. That is time that we as stillbirth parents do not have. Again, every day in New York, there are 5 stillbirths that are occurring. So 5 women are being forced to choose between following the medical advice of their doctors or paying their bills. And that is simply unacceptable. So we must not only seek to raise temporary disability, but in order to make this equitable and in order to decrease the amount of people being victimized, we must first fix the gap in the law. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cassidy, for your clarity and for helping us to understand why it is important that stillbirth is being recognized by itself and not being lumped in together with other maternal health issues that come up. Just for clarity, for those who may not know what stillbirth is, I realize that I didn't state the definition for us. And honestly, each state has its own definition of what stillbirth is. But what stillbirth is the death of a baby in utero before or during delivery at 20 or more weeks gestation. Okay. So that is what stillbirth is. So we're here to support families who have lost their child within 20 weeks in utero or during delivery to have their own paid leave. So thank you for that, Cassidy. We're going to move on our speaker lineup. We usually hear from the mothers. We're about to hear from a lost father. We have Christian Ortiz with us, and I'm going to read his quote. His quote was, New York State revoking paid family leave from a birthing mother is irresponsible. Whether the baby is born dead or alive does not matter. The physical trauma and clinically required aftercare is the same. Asking mothers to return to work in 3 days puts a woman's health at risk, period. You have the floor, Christian.
Thank you. I'm Christian. I'm the father of Valentina, who was born still on December 8th, 2021. And every time I hear Cassidy's story, I've heard it a few times now, it really breaks me up, and it's not right. What I didn't know, though, was that New York State has 5 stillbirths a day, which, according to her math, if you pass a bill in 18 months, would be 2,700 stillbirths between now and between that law is passed. Let me get into my story very quickly. When I first saw my daughter Valentina for the first and only time after 37 weeks of what our OB referred to was one of her easier pregnancies, she was already purple. She had been dead for at least a couple days. We arrived at labor and delivery about a year ago to deliver our Christmas baby, our firstborn, only to find out shortly after arriving there was no heartbeat. Crystal, my partner, had to spend the night with our knowingly dead daughter in her belly before the hospital-induced labor, and she birthed our daughter into the world the following afternoon. Within minutes of delivery, the OB already had a cause of death, and without any questions, curiosity, or second opinion, she arrived at and recorded a cause of death. It was irresponsible, and more importantly, wrong. I know it was wrong because yesterday was a year to the day that I delivered Valentina's eulogy at Immaculate Conception Church in Jamaica, Queens. The OB recorded Valentina's cause of death as strangulation by the umbilical cord, a common and often incorrect cause of death levied by doctors in a system where there is no incentive to discern the truth, but plenty of incentive to conceal it. Unfortunately, our daughter suffered on the way to her demise. She was only born at 3.7 pounds and 8 weeks behind her gestational age. I, as a father, could not reconcile her weight against what the OB was telling me was natural causes. That's why in that moment of hysteria and shock, I located an independent pathologist and ordered an autopsy. Crystal, my partner, was not in favor of this autopsy, as no hospital official, no social worker offered us help or even explained that an autopsy is not a mutilation of our firstborn, but yet the extraction of small incisions for microscopic tissue analysis, which will help us gain answers and hopefully closure, not to mention prevention down the line. How do you stop something if you don't know how it started? Long story short, I have independent reports from obstetrics and pathologists that contradict the doctor's cause of death, and I am now neck deep in litigation. I'm not worried about the outcome of the trial because the truth is on our side, and I am still of the opinion that the truth still matters in this country, even though others vehemently disagree. What I am worried about, and you should be too, is the collateral damage this tragedy has ensued. Crystal's and my life will never be the same. Not with time, not with the second child, because child 2 does not replace child 1. This was a stillbirth at full term, 37 weeks. We had a baby shower. We arrived at the hospital with a baby seat in the truck, the only time we were ever alerted that there was a complication when it was already game over. There are 2 facts that we know. Up to 50% of stillbirths are preventable. There must be a margin of error to consider in that rate, as it is based on reported data, not true data. For example, the current cause of death for my daughter Valentina is strangulation by the umbilical cord. That is an act of God and an unpreventable occurrence under the law. So currently, my daughter's death is credited to the 53% of non-preventable deaths. And that's a lie. The truth is her death was 100% preventable, and I have the evidence to prove it. And had I not been overwhelmed by suspicion and taken the doctor's word for it, like so many of my peers, her record would stand. And not only would we be screwed from not gaining closure, but any experts who access her records in the spirit of prevention will have skewed and poor data to work off of. How are we going to help our clinical partners, some of which who are on this call, research and develop ways to prevent stillbirths if the data being discerned is wrong? The machine that is research and development is only as good as the data it is being fed. My OB was irresponsible. It is my mission through due process to correct that. Equally irresponsible was the state of New York. Even with its heralded paid family leave, I was approved for paid family leave by the state of New York 30 days prior to Valentina's due date of December 28th, 2021. it was to bond. It turns out I didn't need to bond with my deceased daughter, but to be a caregiver, an emotional support figure to my partner. And even if you think my role as a caregiver to someone as fragile, unpredictable, and in a hysterical state is not important, consider this. Crystal, who was also approved by the same paid family leave, had hers revoked as well, even though she produced a note to her employer from the OB stating that she gave birth naturally and that she was ordered on strict bed rest. Her employer leaned on the state's law. And since there was no baby to bond with, no baby that was alive, put her maternal health in danger, demanding she return to work. Let me make this very clear. When a woman gives birth, 20 weeks, after 20 weeks, the outcome of said baby's life, dead or alive, does not matter. Birthing takes a tremendous toll on a woman's body, whether natural or C-section. Determining the recovery time based on whether a baby breathes or not is irresponsible. Not only is this a physical issue, but it is also now a mental health issue. Crystal recorded her highest blood pressure on record post-mortem, the day we went back to the OB to get that stupid letter that says she needs bed rest, only for New York State to dismiss it.
Christian,
Yes.
I apologize. Do you have any, in the essence of time, do you have like any last minute words that you like to say, last few seconds?
Sure. In retrospect and working with counsel, I discovered that I actually was eligible to care for a family member with a serious health condition. In this case, my partner, Crystal. Yet that option was never presented to me by my employer or the state. That was a missed opportunity, an egregious one at that. I only have one more thing to say. However, you would think I would qualify. However, why would I think I qualified when the state revoked Crystal's paid family leave too? Finally, I'll leave you with this. I made a speech to the Capitol 2 months ago. It made its rounds around the internet, and I have been inundated with my inbox with people that have said the collateral damage from this stillbirth has caused their partner to either commit suicide or attempt to commit suicide. And when that suicide attempt fails, they've tried a second or a third time. I am now burdened with this. I should not be burdened with this. This state should be burdened with this. With that, I'm complete.
Thank you so much, Christian, for sharing you and your partner's story, and especially for sharing a father's perspective. We appreciate that. We will move on to our next speaker, which is Samantha Palermo. And I am going to read Samantha's quote, which is, "The best time of my life became the worst time of my life. It's like New York is saying Archer never existed and I never had a baby. Too sad, so sad, carry on."
So I faced infertility and loss since 2014, 3 miscarriages, 3 failed direct inseminations. I was told the chances of carrying my own child were very slim to none. After a few years, I finally came to terms that that wasn't going to be my life. I was never going to have a family of my own. In October 2021, I found out I was pregnant and naturally. So I immediately knew in my heart it was going to be a boy, and I immediately named him Archer Lawrence. We talked about the future. We made plans for our family. We had expectations as parents to look forward to, milestones to experience, memories to make. On July 7th, 2022, I went to the hospital in labor delivery because I had not felt the baby move. It was really unusual for him. He was always kicking my back. Adam said he's just getting big. He's growing. He's out of room. But I went just to make sure. When I sat there and they placed the monitor around my belly and they struggled to find the heartbeat, I remember thinking, this just can't be my loss. This can't be my life. Hearing those words, I'm sorry, but, and everything just blurred after that. Adam got to me right away, and we spent the next 2 days in labor. At 35 weeks, 4 days, Archer Lawrence Northrup was born still. July 9th, 2022, 4:30 p.m., weighing in at 4 pounds, 8.5 ounces. He was 18 inches long and his head was 16 inches around. He was a perfectly healthy baby boy. He was just too active for his own good. He not only had a knot in his umbilical cord, but it was wrapped around his neck twice. The bigger he got, he ran out of room. I then learned there was a family in the room next to me going through the same exact thing. It's not just me. It's not just us. It's so common. We didn't leave the hospital with my son. Instead, we left the hospital with an unbearable loss, knowing I had to go home and plan a funeral and a memorial service. Archer was real. He was a whole handsome baby boy. He is our son. He is a brother. He is a nephew. He is a cousin, and he is a grandson. How am I holding up? It's just a habit now for me to respond with. We have our ups and downs, but together we are getting through them. Panic attacks are normal and regular. When I leave the house, I constantly feel sick to my stomach, almost homesick for a place and something that doesn't exist. I feel like I need to get back home, as if I forgot and left the oven on, or I left the candle burning. I am eating. Sleep comes and goes. So when I called work in Human Resources to report that I gave birth, they said, "Congratulations. We just need a certificate of live birth." I choked. I broke down. Said Archer didn't make it. He's no longer with us. So I don't have a birth certificate. I have a doctor's note that I gave birth at 35 weeks. They gave me their condolences and said they won't be able to give me maternity leave or paid family leave because I no longer have a baby to bond with. That I could claim disability for mental conditions where I can't perform my job duties. Getting a quarter of the pay I was promised. I hung up the phone and threw up. The audacity. I had a baby. I had a whole handsome baby boy. I had to heal my body, my mind, my heart. This just can't be my life. After planning Archer's memorial service, I certainly returned to work after that. I have bills just like anyone else. Now Adam still could have gotten paid family leave. What about me? These mothers, these families, and these babies need recognition. And with this, I'm going to leave it closing. I'm always going to be Archer's mommy. As a mother, as a parent, you are your child's voice till they become their own. I am Archer's mother, and I am Archer's voice. And this will be Archer's way.
Thank you, Samantha Palermo. Yes, you are. You are Archer's voice. And we are all the voices of our children who should be here with us and are not. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And we're going to move on to our next speaker, which is Ashley Spivey.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. You'll have to bear with me. I feel like I'll just be emotional this whole entire time I'm talking. But my brain is mush right now. I have a 3-week-old, so I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible. I want to share my screen with y'all because I have some pictures that I want to share. This is me in the hospital once I learned that I lost my son at 31 weeks. Just to kind of expound on something that Christian said, whenever I found out that he had passed away and I would have to deliver vaginally, this is not something I thought about during my whole pregnancy. My pregnancy was very easy. I did think about committing suicide. I did not want that to be my first birth experience. I couldn't imagine how I was going to go on after that happened. Ultimately, I did not, but I would be lying if I said it's not something I still think about. It's something that destroyed me. And I can tell you that I just experienced a C-section with the birth of my daughter, and the recovery process has been much easier after major surgery. than what the recovery process was like after delivering my son Still. I tore. My placenta was sticky and they had to rip it out of me because my body was not ready to give birth. You know, I had to watch them pack my bed, or my son's bed. This is him, this is CJ. I had to watch them pack his bed with ice packs. That's something that, like, your mind does not forget. He went from being very warm to being very cold. It's something I hope, there's lots of people on this call who have experienced it, but it's inhumane to not give people the support they need after going through something like this. I've never shared a picture of CJ before because, unfortunately, I experienced some pretty bad online abuse by anti-vaxxers who said that his death was the result of me getting the flu shot. And that's not true. Even though we still don't have answers for why he died, they said it was the cord wrapped around his neck, but my placenta did not confirm that. This was us leaving the hospital. I had pretty bad nightmares once we got home, thinking about leaving CJ there, and just thinking about him being in the morgue and no one holding him. I called the funeral director, I called my doctor, I called hospital administrators every day. Just confirm that they would send off his remains so they could be cremated. I could not sleep. It was so painful. But they did eventually get him home. And I'd like to say that the nightmare stopped after that, but they haven't. I still think about just how horrible it was all the time. Even the birth of my daughter is never going to make that pain okay. In thinking about recovering and why people do need this time, this is me. Once my milk came in, that was not something I thought about. It was extremely painful. I tried a lot of different things to get my milk to go away, but the process took a very, very long time. I just can't imagine going back to work after 3 days or not getting that time to properly heal. I wanted to share those pictures because I think that people's minds don't go there whenever they hear that someone had a stillbirth. They don't want to think about how awful that process is and what people go through. So I hope that those pictures didn't upset anyone. I wasn't trying to make anyone upset, but I do think it's important when we're talking about grief and what people mentally go through and physically go through after stillbirth. I think it's important to see those things.
Ashley, thank you so very much for sharing your story. So raw. Thank you. We feel honored that we are the first that you've shared CJ's pictures with. He was beautiful. And please never apologize for showing your baby. He is your baby. Let us deal with it. Thank you so very much. And like we're grateful for you sharing your story and for pleading on behalf of lost families. Thank you. We are going to move on. We're going to ask for Senator Tim Kennedy to join us. He is helping to sponsor this bill. Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Marjorie. Good afternoon, everybody. It is so amazing to be with you all here today. I want to start, first of all, by thanking Push for putting this event together. I am truly grateful for your efforts, for your organizational support, and especially to these brave women and men for sharing your stories. I want to recognize Marjorie, Cassidy, Christian, Samantha, and Ashley, all for those very powerful, difficult stories. You're all incredible. You're all courageous for sharing them. I know how difficult it is to share those stories. I can promise you that Alexi, Olivia, Valentina, Archer, and CJ are all going to be the driving force behind getting this legislation done. And you should hang your hat on that and be very proud to know that it's going to be your little baby angels that are driving this to fruition and helping what will be countless families across New York State. I do carry the bill to provide paid family leave for mothers who suffer the loss of a child through stillbirth. I was a co-sponsor of the bill 11 years ago when we had a similar fight in the legislature, when we were able to get a certificate of birth resulting in stillbirth for our babies that are lost here in New York. And that took 9 years to get done. And it was only because of, again, courageous people like yourselves telling your stories and using that very difficult circumstance to help inform others about the process that was flawed, that we were able to get that done. I can tell you this, I am absolutely focused on making sure this legislation is approved and signed into law. It's essential that families that suffer the loss of a child through stillbirth have the ability to grieve, have the ability to heal, have the ability to be with their families, and especially under such difficult circumstances. I want to recognize a few folks on this call. First of all, my colleague from the Senate, Senator Jeremy Cooney from Rochester, who is also a tremendous leader and a driving force and an advocate to make sure that this legislation gets done. I also want to recognize a number of Assembly members who have joined us here today, Assemblywoman Rak Kumar, as well as Assemblyman Brian Manctillo. We need our legislature to come together and to pass this important legislation. The bill number in the Senate is 9424. We were actually able to get this over the finish line in the Senate this past year. We're hopeful to get it finally approved in both houses and to the governor this upcoming legislative session. This is personal for me. Back in 2004, my sister, Peggy, my oldest sister, gave birth to a little boy, John Christian Jude Mulderig. He was stillborn at 36 weeks. So we have lived in my family the horrific situation of losing a child through stillbirth. We celebrate John Christian Jude Mulderig. We say his name. We show his pictures. I want to say how beautiful CJ is and was. Please, Ashley, share that picture with great pride. I'm sitting here in my dining room. I'm not typically dressed in my suit in my home. It's usually for the office. But we're doing this press conference virtually. So I'm home and I happen to look across the room and here's my little girl. My wife and I lost Bridget Nicole Kennedy on October 19th, 2007. She was born alive with us for 4 minutes, and we baptized her and sent her to be with the Lord. So, I know the pain that you families are dealing with. I know how hard it is to share these stories and how emotional it is. And I know that we still to this day celebrate our daughter along with her cousin, John. So this is personal for all of us. We are driven to do what's right for other families. I am so grateful for you incredible women, especially, and men, for telling these powerful stories that will help get this legislation done finally over the finish line, and help grieving families, especially in their time of need after the birth of a stillborn child. And I'm, again, forever grateful for your efforts and support. And I want to tell you, I'd love to promise you something, because I'm a big fan of following through on my promises and commitments. What I will tell you is this. I promise that we are going to do everything in my power and in our power to get this done. And I'm very confident that with your help, we will get it across the finish line and signed into law. So let's stay focused, diligent, and passionate. And I know you all will. Again, I want to thank Push and all of these amazing, courageous individuals for sharing your stories and making this possible.
Thank you so much, Senator Kennedy, for your allyship. Thank you so much for championing this bill for us, for all lost families. And most of all, thank you so much for sharing Bridget Nicola and John Christian with us. We honor them. We honor their lives, whether 4 minutes or no minutes. We thank you so much for sharing them with us.
Thank you.
We are going to move on to our next speaker, which is Assemblywoman Jennifer Rajkumar. We thank you so much for being with us. She is helping us with the bill on the Assembly floor. We welcome you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Rajkumar. I am a New York State Assemblywoman, and I am the first woman ever elected to this Assembly seat. And today I am proud to stand up for women across New York State who have experienced the tragedy of stillbirth. It is time our law catches up and recognizes the reality of pregnancy, and by extension, the reality of women's lives. Thank you to Cassidy Perrone for her fearless advocacy. After her baby was tragically born dead, she turned her pain into purpose. Her fearlessness will pave the way for women across New York State. Thank you to the women of Push for Empowered Pregnancy, including Ali Felker, Marnie Smith, Samantha Banerjee, Marjorie Vale, Ashley and Samantha. And thank you to my dear friend from childhood, Rachel Krause, who experienced a tragic stillbirth this year and who is here with us today. Rachel's pain is my pain. My bill is her bill. And together, we will secure justice, fairness, and the legal recognition that women in her position deserve. I support these brave and courageous parents that we heard from today. Their fight is my fight. And that is why today I am proud to announce that I have introduced the bill in the State Assembly to expand New York State's paid family leave law to include women who have suffered stillbirth. All women who give birth should have paid time off. And make no mistake, the women gathered here today at this press conference gave birth, and their bodies went through the birthing process, and their babies were real. Though their precious babies did not survive the birth, their mothers did, and their mothers' bodies need the time to recover, just like all women need after a pregnancy. The mother of a stillbirth child also needs the time to grieve the loss of her baby. These women deserve to be seen and to be included in the paid family leave law of our state. I was proud to work for the governor of New York when we first enacted paid family leave in New York. We made history at that time, becoming one of just 8 states in our country to have a paid family leave policy. And now it's time for New York to lead the way again by perfecting this law to include parents of stillbirth children. And that's what my legislation seeks to do. My partner in the state Senate, who you just heard from, is Senator Tim Kennedy. And together we are committed to passing this legislation through both the Assembly and the Senate in the upcoming 2023 legislative session. And let's get clarity on the group of New Yorkers that we are supporting. 1,345 babies were born still in New York State in 2019. So we will be helping nearly 1,500 families through changing the law. A CDC study shows that women who had COVID-19 during delivery were twice as likely to deliver stillborn babies, and we will be helping them. And women of color are more at risk of delivering stillbirth children. And those women of color need our support. As the first South Asian woman elected in this state, supporting the maternal health of women of color is of primary importance to me. Let's be clear also about New York's current paid family leave policy so we know exactly what we are talking about. It allows employees to take job-protected paid time off in certain situations. Those include bonding with a newborn or adopted or fostered child, caring for a sick family member, or dealing with family situations when a family member in the military is deployed abroad. The law allows for up to 12 weeks off at 67% of an employee's pay, up to $1,068 a week. But this 12-week support is denied to women who deliver stillbirth children. They are left to grieve and struggle on their own, often forced to go back to work before their bodies are recovered from the pregnancy. We cannot let New York women go through this torture. We must fix the gap in the law. I look forward to working with the women here today, with all the parents, with my colleagues in the legislature, some of who are here today, including Senator Jeremy Cooney, Assemblyman Mankelau, with my Senate partner, Tim Kennedy, with Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie, with State Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, and with the Governor, Kathy Hochul. I look forward to working together with them to see this legislation through. And finally, I will leave you with the words of the great Shirley Chisholm, former New York State Assemblywoman herself, and the first Black woman to run for president. She said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. We will be bringing our folding chairs to Albany this legislative cycle to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Assemblywoman Raj Kumar. Thank you for championing this bill for us. But most importantly, thank you for highlighting and spotlighting the emotional, physical, mental, and social things that women go through and families go through after a stillbirth. This is why this bill is so important. So thank you for that. We thank you for joining this battle with us. We are going to move on to our next speakers. We're going to have Nora Nicholson be our next speaker, and to introduce Nora and Yuvelka Magdalena Reyes. Both will be speaking. I just wanted to read Nora's quote. Nora says, as a lost parent and a Count the Kicks ambassador, I know firsthand the pain that a parent feels when their baby is stillborn. The body and mind need time to heal, and that is why it is essential to support paid family leave for stillbirth parents. Thank you, ladies, for joining us, and you have the floor.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone on this call, for those brave enough to share their stories. I lost my son in 2001. He was 37 weeks. I went in for a growth check. They found there was no heartbeat. I delivered vaginally after 14 hours of labor and went home to a 3-year-old daughter and needed to tell her that her baby brother was not coming home. I was fortunate in a lot of ways. My employer at the time was very supportive. I was able to take leave, so I was able to take time to heal, and there was a lot of healing to do mentally, physically. I was bothered during my pregnancy by something going on with my nipple that I just kind of associated with colostrum coming in. It had bothered me. I went in 2 weeks after I lost my son, Bryce, and my doctor said, doesn't look right, let's swab it. She swabbed my nipple, came back with irregular cells that pushed me into having a mammogram, which pushed me into having an ultrasound. 6 weeks after I lost my son, Bryce, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. 5% of breast cancers happen in pregnant women, I found out. And it's something that I feel very fortunate that I found early, was able to take care of early, and am now a 11-year cancer survivor. But the organization that I advocate for, Count the Kicks, is Healthy Birthday. And I just wanted to highlight, we have published a white paper that establishes a link of maternal morbidity, and it states that it is more than 4 times higher among stillbirth deliveries compared with live births. And maternal morbidity is an incredibly big issue and an important issue that is linked to stillbirth. So as mothers are recovering physically, emotionally, they need to be taking care of their bodies too. And we don't want to lose mothers. I fortunately was not a statistic that lost my life after I gave birth to a stillborn. But I feel, again, fortunate that I was able to have the time to dedicate to my health after I lost my son. So I'll pass it over to you, Velka. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kush. Thank you for allowing me to be in this space with you all today. And I also want to give a trigger warning to all moms and parents for loss for what I'm about to say. My name is Yuvelka Magdalena Reyes, and I am an American New York native, born in the Bronx and also bred in the Bronx, with 4 children and 2 spirit babies. I'm also a grandmother of loss. I don't know how many senators have children. I don't know how many senators have experienced the death of a loved one. But what I can tell you, as a full spectrum birth and death doula, as a brain spotting practitioner, and as a New York Count the Kicks ambassador, is this. Pregnancy is a time of dramatic hormone-driven physiological and physical changes. It is not something that can be ignored, just like a growing baby belly. A lot of women are just really excited and happy about being pregnant, especially those who have been trying for a really long time. Now add all those hormones to grief and a broken heart. With grief, your brain is in shock, overloaded with thoughts of sadness, loneliness, confusion, and so many other feelings, even anger. It affects your memory, your concentration, and your cognition, regardless of how many college degrees you have. This is about the human brain and the body system. The symptoms of grief leave little room for everyday tasks. And this is just for mom. This is not even considering if she has to take care of other children, if she has to take care of elders, or if she even has to hold a job. Now let's add to the mix a broken heart. That chronic pain that hangs over for days, depleting you, that dull ache, that piercing, crushing sensation in the center of your chest. Now, all these 3 at once, hormones, grief, and a broken heart. This is all the areas that are affected in the brain. Every single area. For the rest of their life, these parents will grieve. To lose a child, it is absolutely the worst. To a mother, it feels out of order. Parents should die first. Every day they're going to think about what that child would be doing. Every day they're going to think about would that child be now. Time needs to be given to heal emotionally and physically, but especially mentally. Trauma affects and changes the brain. Mental, just think about it. That pelvic exam, physically invasive and traumatic. That ultrasound to confirm death, mentally invasive and traumatic. When the doctor needs to induce labor and delivery of the baby, traumatic. After the delivery of the baby, the doctor needs the placenta and the baby to be examined and to be determined and confirmed for death. This is traumatic. And there's not even enough time to say goodbye before deterioration begins. This is the stillbirth experience, and many stillbirths are preventable. Time needs to be given to heal emotionally, physically, and mentally. Just think about it. The breast milk comes in and there's no baby to feed. With every drop that falls out of her breast, that is traumatic. Most health providers, they recommend that a woman wait at least one menstrual cycle before trying to get pregnant again. Can we please be mindful of this and consider this time in supporting paid family leave for stillbirth parents? The average length of a menstrual cycle is at least 28 days, and the minimum for a healthy postpartum period is 40 days. Please don't let this bill die. This too is preventable. Can we please give families time and access for healing? Only those senators can help make this happen. Only the government can push this to make this happen. Can you please support paid family leave for all stillbirth parents? Thank you for your time today, and with that, I'm complete.
Thank you so much, Nora and Yuvelka, for sharing your stories with us and for advocating to make sure that families of loss get the important time. It may not be enough time, but at least it's some time to get their hearts and their minds on track, to be able to want to live and go on for themselves and for their families. Thank you so much. Right now, we're going to open the floor for questions. For any of our legislators who are here, any of our media that are here that have any questions that they may have that need to be answered, we are here to answer them. We open the floor at this moment for that. Feel free to write your questions in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourselves and ask your question.
Around the area, the streetlights are out too. So I think the car.
This is Berkeley Green from News 10 NBC in Rochester. I'd like to ask a question to Senator Kennedy and Assemblywoman Rajkumar. Why do you think that this bill hasn't gone anywhere in the Assembly in the past when it was passed unanimously in the Senate last year?
Thank you for that question. I'm not too sure if Senator Kennedy is still with us. Cassidy, you would like to take that question?
Sure. Berkeley, after the death of Olivia in March of 2022, I reached out to the current individuals that were carrying the bill I had discussed earlier that included abortion and stillbirth along with miscarriage. When I proposed just going about it for stillbirth, the only person that listened was Tim Kennedy. The assembly member felt that New York State did not have a grievance system, therefore they could not propose a similar bill because Congress would have to give us the right as New Yorkers to instill a grievance system through the Social Spending Act, which was deadlocked between Republicans and Democrats. And what I had said to them in March was, this is not about grieving. This is about a woman's right to heal. By the time Senator Kennedy had passed his bill unanimously, I had reached back out to this individual who had at that point decided to put the bill forth. And there was only 2 days left of session, but it was my understanding that you need 3 days for a bill number to mature. So had they listened to me 3 months prior, we would not be in this position. Unfortunately, due to politics, here we are today. And that is what we're asking, is that New York remove the politics and do what is right by adding stillbirth. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Berkeley, for that question. The floor is still open for any other questions that we may have.
Hey, Marjorie, we have a question coming in from Facebook.
Yeah.
They're asking if this bill is nationwide.
I'd be happy to answer that. No, this is unfortunately just for New York State, although I think there are a number of states where women are rising and requesting the exact same rights. And we hope that throughout New York, that the states that do decide to impose a paid family leave act, that they will follow New York's lead. We would be leading the way nationwide by advocating for stillbirth and actually allowing stillbirth to be a qualifying event for paid family leave.
First of all, I want to thank all the speakers and thank Marjorie and of course Push. Marjorie, it's not easy with technical difficulties and all that stuff. And you're just amazing when it comes to, doing this kind of thing. And thank you to all the speakers. I just had a comment, and because we have some press here and because we have other lost families, I just wanted to note that a number of us, and we need all of us, will be in Albany on January 31st for an advocacy day, where we will meet in person with your local representatives and all representatives to make sure that they're aware of these legislations, both in the House and the Senate. I mean, the Assembly and the Senate.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Bobby. And yes, I saw there was also a follow-up question from Jeanette on Facebook about how families can get involved. So yes, as Bobby mentioned, if you are in New York State, we would love to have you join us for the Advocacy Day in Albany on January 31st. You could come to Albany or you can join through Zoom too. So if you follow up with Push through social media or our website, pushpregnancy.org, you can email us at info@pushpregnancy.org. We'd love to get you looped in. If you are located in a different state and would like to help support a similar bill in your state that is already existing or get one started, our legislative team would absolutely love to help walk you through that process. We are all volunteers. We are all families. And if we can do it, you can too. And we are here to help share whatever resources that we have to make that as easy as possible.
You don't have to be a lost family. If you don't live in New York and you have friends and family in New York that want to come to Albany, they can tell your story. So, please spread the word.
Thank you. Great point, Bobby. And Christian, I see you have your hand up. Would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, this will be very brief. Two things. A, I really don't want this to go unsaid, and I know Marjorie said it, but Ashley did what a bunch of us didn't have the courage to do, which is share her child's photos. So I really wanted to just give kudos to Ashley for doing that, because I was asked to do it and I flat out said no, because I know that I can't handle it. I haven't even looked at my own daughter's photos, and this is going back a year. And in my lawsuit, when it comes up and I happen to see them in a shared drive, I freaking lose it. So Ashley, thank you for being the strong voice and the powerful voice and doing what you did today. I also want to just add, as part of my talking points, that womenshealth.org states that postpartum depression of those mothers who have experienced a stillbirth is double than that of those who had a live baby. So when I talk about getting messages into my inbox of failed attempts at suicide, this is a very real thing. And this is the collateral damage I think we're all talking about. And that's just one side of it. Forget about the maternal health side, the blood clots, and people being asked to go to work too soon when they need to be home being taken care of by a clinician, or at the very least having somebody look after them, like myself or a partner or husband, etc. I just, it is a real thing. Twice, the rate for postpartum depression doubles for a stillbirth. So just coming from a state where we have a woman governor and 1/3 of our elected officials are women, I don't understand how this is taking so long to get passed. And with that, I'm complete.
Thank you for sharing that, Christian. You're right. We don't need to wait till tragedy happens to us or to our families. We can advocate from now. We can be allies from now. And so we ask anyone and everyone to help us to push this bill. It's S9424. Help it to pass for those future families who sadly will lose their babies.
Thank you, Marjorie. And Cassidy, I just wanted to confirm, we do not have a bill number yet in the Assembly, correct?
Correct. It has been submitted, but until session starts, it won't have enough time for a number to mature. At that point in time, as soon as we get it, I know we will be blasting it on social media and our website through push.
Yes, absolutely. And is it possible that even the Senate bill number might change? We're in a new session this year, or will it carry over?
We're going to try to carry it over, but there's no guarantee. So if it should carry over, we will keep everyone apprised.
Okay, great. Yes, as Cassidy said, we will be keeping our website, pushpregnancy.org/legislation, up to date with all the latest information. So as soon as updated bill numbers are available, we will have it there, as well as any call to actions, because it's really easy for families, for anyone who's supportive of this. And as Bobby mentioned, you don't have to be a lost family. You don't have to know someone who's been through this. I mean, anyone who has had a baby or knows anyone who's had a baby knows how important that postpartum recovery period is, both from a physical and mental perspective. And as we heard earlier, parents who suffer a stillbirth are almost 5 times as likely to have severe maternal complications in the postpartum period. We know that BIPOC families, particularly Black women, are more than twice as likely to suffer a stillbirth. And also along the same lines, far more likely to lose their lives or have severe complications in the postpartum period. And so again, all of these things go hand in hand. Families deserve time after having a birth, whether their baby lives or dies. And we would argue that if your baby is not in your arms, that time becomes even more absolutely critical and important for both the birthing parent and for their partner and support system. So thank you so much for tuning in with us today. Please stay tuned for more information about the Advocacy Day coming up in January, and for more easy ways to help support the bill, including reaching out to the governor's office, to your state representatives, and asking them to support the bill once the session starts in January. Thank you so much, everyone. Marjorie, is there anything else you wanted to close out with?
I just want to thank all of the lost families for sharing their stories. It's not easy. For me, it's been 18 years and still not easy. And so we thank you for at the cost of your own mental and emotional health, that you share these stories so that future families don't have to go through it. Support the bill. Please check in with Push for Empowered Pregnancy on our website to be updated. We're in the forefront, and we would love your support. Thank you, Cassidy, for your advocacy, for turning your pain into power. Thank you for that. And lastly, we ask everyone, bring your folding chairs. As Assemblywoman Rajkumar said, bring your folding chairs. We will not stop. We will not stop, and it will come to pass.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. United we push.